Hey, welcome to the Lifestyle Creation Podcast, designing life on your terms. I'm your host, Jamie Thurber, and I'm an expert operations manager, productivity queen, mindset, business, and lifestyle coach. Basically, getting shit done is my jam. And I believe in the power of intentional living and in real conversations that can shift your perspective, create habits, and ultimately achieve the freedom that you want in every area of your life. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the podcast. Man, I'll tell you what, I can't believe, first of all, I just want to say, I can't believe that we've been podcasting as long as we've been podcasting. It's been almost 2 years, a year and a half, that we've consistently been putting out an episode every 2 weeks, and I'm so excited and so grateful. I will say that I've had a lot of inquiries in my email of people asking me about, well, basically it's people pitching themselves wanting to be guests on the podcast. And that's something that when I first started the Lifestyle Creation Podcast that I had as an option in my head. I basically decided that potentially I would do like a one-off, maybe once a month, longer episode that was me interviewing someone else or like a dual conversation with somebody else that could bring value to your guys' lives. So we haven't done that for several reasons. One of which just being planning and me just time availability on my end. But it's something that I kind of wanted to run by you as an idea. I want to know what you think about that. So if you're an avid listener, or this is your first time, or maybe you're just checking things out, I'd just be curious to know how you would feel about that. When I started the podcast, it was important to me that I kept the episodes under 40 minutes. Like 40 minutes is my max, because I want it to be something that you can listen to quickly. Like I don't want you to have to always block out an hour of your time to hang out with me. Right? So I want it to be something you can listen to on your way to work, or you can listen to when you're, taking a walk or going through the grocery store or whatever you want to do, or getting ready in the morning, like something that's easier and like less of a time commitment for you to tune in, catch a little different vibe, get some inspiration or whatever it is you're looking for and be able to move forward. So with the idea, I know myself, I definitely am a talker. And so for me to have a guest or have another person on the podcast with me, I definitely know that it would wind up being well over the 40 minutes, probably closer to the hour for sure. So that's one of those things that I'd love your feedback about. So you guys can email me below or message me on social media and just let me know what your thoughts are about that as far as the podcast goes. Both the links to both my social channels are below as well as my email. So I wanted to just check in with you guys about that and just in general about a few things. I don't know if we've ever fully discussed all this stuff before, and it just felt to me like it was time for a bit of a check-in, and I was just gonna kind of just go with whatever comes to mind for this episode. So for those of you who are new or just maybe aren't super sure of what I do or who I am, my name is Jamie Thurber, and I am a lifestyle creation specialist. I'm a life and business coach. I'm a growth consultant. I work with entrepreneurs and or managers in order to create growth within their companies, efficiency within their companies, team building, and as well as the managing, being a manager, and having a life. I also work with individuals on creating balance and creating the lifestyle that they want, finding out clearer mindsets, just being better humans. Ultimately, my goal is for people to enjoy their lives more, be better humans, and have the things that they want. That's it. That's what we do around here. And so that's been the underlining piece. And I do that through individual coaching. I do that through a group. I do that through my social media channels. I do that through YouTube videos, through Facebook, through blog posts, through Snapchat, through Instagram stories. All the stuff that I've been producing over the last 6 years is all channeled around that and channeled around shifting perspectives, putting more good out into the world, being better versions of ourselves, and ultimately just me sharing my journey with you. I'm a big firm believer in storytelling. I think that storytelling I believe it is one of the most impactful ways to reach people, to help them shift, to help them feel more comfortable, to help them create any sort of, positivity or better feelings. And so storytelling is one of my ultimate favorite things to do. And that's what most of my blog posting, most of my things that I'm doing are all about. And I do a lot of storytelling within our podcast episodes, as I'm sure you've realized or you've noticed. The reason I love storytelling is, and it's one of the first things that I mention to any client who's asking me, how do I reach my ideal client? Like, how do I connect with more people, that I want to be a client, or I want to just be in my circle, or I want to have better connection with, whatever. How do I reach them? My number one, or how do I be a better manager and be better understood? My number one suggestion always is storytelling. And it's because the beauty of telling a story, and I don't mean telling a made up fucking story, I mean telling like a true story or something you've experienced or something that you've witnessed or whatever, that what happens when you tell a story is each person listening picks a different piece out of it. Each person grabs something different from that story, and it resonates with them in different ways. So it's a really beautiful methodology that allows everyone to get whatever the hell it is that they need, even if they don't know. Everybody picks up what they need from your story and from you sharing. And so it's a beautiful practice, and it's something that I committed myself to doing a long time ago at this point. It's funny because I feel like, okay, yeah, I've been fully in business, 100% into my company without working anywhere else for 6 years now. Started the company 8 years ago, but utilized it as something completely different, and just it's really morphed into this to where I still am business managing for clients and consulting in brick and mortars and things like that, as well as coaching and doing lifestyle coaching. And so it's like a little bit of everything. Like there's a lot going on around here. But when we started it 8 years ago, I say we, it's me. When I started it 8 years ago, it was as event planning, managing, and efficiency mapping. So that's what we did for small businesses and organizations. Basically, I started doing that because I was doing that for my boss at the time, and we needed to figure out a different way for me to be paid and for him to have that expense and like that. So it was kind of created for that reasoning, but then it morphed into what it is now. But the truth is that I started writing my blog 10, 11 years ago. I started writing it a long time ago. I've been sharing my life in writings since I was 18, 19 years old. And so it's always been a part of what I do, long before I realized the impact that it could have or the reasoning behind it. At the time when I would write a lot, it was for my own benefit. Like it made me feel better. And the beauty of that is through all of the growth and all of the transformation and all of the evolution, that's still the reason that I write. I write because it feels good for me. It's just a beautiful side effect that it gets to help other people too, and that it can get in front of other people. And so that's one of the things, I guess, if you look at your own story, or maybe you feel like you've not made it very far yet, or you feel like you're in the middle, or you're stuck or whatever, I promise you that if you allow yourself the space to really look through what you've been through, or really look back, whether it's right now or it's in a couple years from now, there'll be a space where you'll see, wow, this all makes so much sense, the way that it's worked itself out. The way that it's worked itself out makes more sense than I ever knew that it could. Everything webs together so beautifully and so clearly. And that's one of my favorite pieces to think about. So I wanted to share that with you for a minute and just let you know that even if you are feeling maybe a little stuck or flustered, or you're in the middle and you feel like you're trying to get to an end zone somewhere, don't stress too much, because all of what's transpiring is transpiring for a reason. It's all weaving a web. It's all creating this web of things that will ultimately continue to place you where it is you're supposed to be, or where it is you want to be, if you keep your head in the right place and keep moving forward. For me, which I've talked to you guys a little bit about this before, for me, when I've had people ask me, what's your business plan? Can you share your business model with me? And it's like, well, my business plan has always been to be happier and to help people have more efficiency and more happiness in their lives, to learn how to have all of the things all at the same time. Basically, that's always been the mission, how I was going to do that, how I was going to interact with people, communicate with them, help them. None of that was ever really lined out before. I just went with it and kept my eye on the fact this is what I needed and wanted to do, was to help people. And it all rolled itself out by me continuing to explore and share and, dive into places that felt like they were sticky maybe and needed my attention, or, just allowed myself to think outside the box. People that are in my coaching group will tell you that I say this a lot, where I'll say, says fucking who. And we're actually making t-shirts about it. So stay tuned. But it's one of those things where it's like, says fucking who on the way it's supposed to be, or the path you're supposed to take, or how it's supposed to look. And so when you start to ask yourself those questions, like, that's what's allowed me to figure out the way that I communicate with my clients, the way that we work together, the way that I share data with them, the way me and my team work together, the way my brand works. Like, I've taken the time to, soak up what everyone else is doing and then deciding what I want it to be and acting accordingly. 5 years ago, I would have never in a million years thought that I would have worked with all the people that I've worked with throughout the world in the way that I have, of most of which I know intimately the details of their lives, but I've never met them in person. That's a thing. Like, that's part of how we've worked, and I've been able to help them grow lives and businesses and families and things like that. And it's just like, holy shit, a way to realize that when you stop allowing the constrictions of what we were taught or what other people say or what it's supposed to be like, when you let that stuff slip away and you're willing to take a chance on doing it your own way, like, you never know how it's going to turn out. So that's where a lot of times I ask myself still all the time, like, says fucking who? Like right now, I have final interviews tomorrow with potential personal assistants. I have a personal assistant right now, but she's been minimal, very small amount of time each week. And she's been part-time. She's 20 hours a week. And she's a teacher. So she's got a new job and she's starting, teaching. And so I sat here and was like, you know what? I'm going to hire a full-time personal assistant here. I already have a virtual assistant that works a lot of hours for me every week on my business. I have her, I have a Pinterest specialist, I have a marketing girl, I have a bookkeeper, I have a graphic designer, I have an accountant. Like, I have all these people. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, wow, that's a lot of humans to have supporting your business. Like, why do you have all of that? You're not making multi-millions of dollars. You're not making multiple 7 figures. Like, why would you have all of those people? And you know what? And in some people's cases, they built 7-figure businesses before they decided to hire teams like I have. That wasn't the path that I decided to take for a lot of reasons. And that's okay, because says fucking who that I should wait to hire people. Like, says fucking who that it doesn't make sense that I bring in a personal assistant to help me with these things. Like, my quality of life, y'all, I'll tell you what, my quality of life over these years has become the most important thing to me. Like, I would rather pay somebody a salary and me bring home a little bit less money than a little bit less money as a result, and my quality of life be through the roof. That's a choice that I make. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, that stresses them out and they think it's weird and it doesn't make sense to them, but that's okay. Because again, who says it should be the other way around? Somebody somewhere. Like, you get to make the rules, especially when you're an entrepreneur, but you get to make the rules in your own life anyways and decide, like, this doesn't suit me. So what do I want to do instead? And you're able, how do I want it to feel, or how do I want it to be instead? In those moments, I encourage you to look, like I said, to look outside the box. I don't always, consider myself to be the most creative person, or I would have never before, when it comes to thinking outside the box, like being spontaneous. Like, that was just never really a thing for me. And it's not that I'm spontaneous per se in these decisions, but I do allow myself to think, wait a minute, where's that story inside of me coming from that tells me you shouldn't have a full-time personal assistant if you're not making 7 figures? Like, where's that story coming from? I don't really know, and I don't really give a shit at this point either. Like, that was one of those where I sat there and thought about it, and I was like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, why are we so stressed about this? That makes no fucking sense at all, right? And it's those things, those storylines that build up in the background of our head and in the roots of our system, that our subconscious, I should say, that keep us in certain places, that if we're not willing to practice the daily intentional work that I talk about here on every episode and that I teach every day, like, if we're not willing to do that and create enough space for us to notice, like, hey, that doesn't work the way I want it to, or that doesn't feel really great. Like, if we're not willing to do that, then I don't really know what else to say, right? Like, if we're not willing to do that, then there's a great chance that we don't create lives that are the way that what I'm describing to you is. And that's okay too. Like, each person's prerogative. But the thought process there is that we start to recognize that we're allowed to do it either way. We're allowed to make our own rules, and we're allowed to play by everybody else's rules. Like, these are all choices that we get to make. And I remember early on being an entrepreneur and thinking, like, and posting things like about, why struggle the 9 to 5 when you could have the freedom, or something like that. There's like a phrase, I don't remember what it is, but I remember when I shared that publicly, something about the, like, why slave, that's what it is, like, why slave to 9 to 5 when you can have the freedom of being, owning your own business or whatever. And I remember sharing that, feeling like, yeah, of course, like, why would you want to do that? And my brother, who is one of the most intelligent humans I know, by the way, commenting below, and he's like, what if it's not slaving 9 to 5? Like, who says it has to be slaving? And I remember thinking, and I almost felt like ashamed of myself. It's so funny that I remember this so clearly, because this was a really long time ago. But I remember almost feeling ashamed of myself for saying that and for thinking it, because it's like, damn, Jesse, like, you're right. Not everybody feels like they're a slave to their job. Not everybody, is all of those things. And so obviously, like, I've changed, my perspective has shifted, and who I work with even has shifted away from just people who are like, why would, who just want to be entrepreneurs or own their own businesses. Because the truth of the matter is not for everybody. And it doesn't have to be, right? So, like, our perspective changes, and we get caught up in this, well, everybody should want to do this. I always think about that line from the movie, The Devil Wears Prada. I always think about that line when she says, what are you kidding, Andrea? Everybody wants to be us, when they're in Paris. And I always laugh at that, because it's like, I mean, sure, there are plenty of people who are what they were saying in that movie, like, every girl, you have the job that every girl wants, like, every girl would kill for this job. Like, that's accurate for some people, but in other cases, it's like, you know what? Some people don't want to ever do this in their lives. They want to go to work and work their job, be done when they're done, and go home. And that's fucking fine too. That's fine too. So there's just a lot of weird judgment that happens. I think that if the more that we allow ourselves to recognize, like, whatever feels right for you is right for you, and continuing though to guess or to question that stuff, and allow yourself to look deeper, that's the important part. Like, that's the most important part, whether that means you're looking deeper into business things or looking deeper into the job or the lifestyle that you want, like, that constant desire to think outside of the box is one, or look outside for more happiness and more whatever, is absolutely one that I encourage in everyone, but I don't encourage it to look like anything other than what exactly you want it to look like. That is my message for y'all today. It was random, and it was short and sweet, and that's what came out of me, and I'm going to leave you with that, because I think that was exactly what needed to be delivered. So as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting our cause and supporting the podcast. I always appreciate that so much. As you guys know, like, this is funded by me, and I have a team that helps me produce the podcast. I have no sponsorships. I have no one else, contributing besides me and my business. And I do it because I like to. I do it because I want to get these messages out there. And honestly, because I have a lot of shit to say and I want to put it out into the world. So this allows me a different way to do that. So by tuning in, by liking the posts and liking the comments, by sharing this episode, by rating this on iTunes, by doing that stuff, like, that's a way that I could never in a million years pay. Like, there's no dollar amount that creates the reach and the support that those gestures by people like you make for businesses like mine. So, we always do have the button below if you ever wanted to donate or you wanted to support the podcast or do whatever it is you want to do. There's also links to how you could work with me. But the biggest thing is liking, commenting, sharing, and leaving reviews. Like, that is literally a priceless, very valuable thing that you can give if you were ever looking for a way to support what we're doing. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. And until next time, guys.